He has written more than 1,700 stories, dazzling readers with mind-bending works of fantasy. His television shows have transported audiences to where no man has gone before.
Holmes, no!
This man's name is Harlan Ellison. Brace yourself for some dangerous visions.
The Sci-Fi Channel presents a look inside the creative mind of Harlan Ellison, a master of fantasy.
Most writers are shy creatures. They labor in obscurity, silently translating thoughts and dreams into written words. Harlan Ellison is not one of those writers.
I love to write. I just love to write. When I sit down at the typewriter, man, I'm like Nemo at the pipe organ. I just sit there and say, all right, do it. When I hear writers complain about, oh, it's such hard work, you people ought to be out digging ditches, for God's sakes.
Quiet, soft-spoken, timid, shy.
Yes, I did it! I did it! I'll tell you!
After spending 2 or 3 hours in his company, I have to go lie down for a while.
Get out of here! Beat it!
A Borscht-Bell comic trapped in the body of a great science fiction writer.
How many leprechaun nuns do you have here in the order?
He's the most refreshing, honest, direct, unequivocal, specific, verbal, shy person I've ever known.
I have won more awards than anybody else in the field. And I say that with absolutely no humility. Nobody gave me anything. I worked my ass off to get those awards. See, as you can clearly tell, I am not the world's most lovable guy. So for me to win an award means the work has got to be really great.
Ellison talks the talk, but he also walks the walk. With 74 books and 1,700 short stories, essays, and articles to his credit, he's one of the most prolific writers in the world.
If I were a plumber and I had fixed 10,000 toilets, would you say I'm a prolific plumber? It's what I do. I'm a writer.
And not just any writer. Ellison's extraordinary fiction elegantly combines elements of mystery, drama, and fantasy, shattering the boundaries of imaginative literature.
He does with life what Picasso did with images, in a way, you know? He's almost a literary cubist.
I have no mouth and I must scream. What an extraordinary piece of writing. Extraordinary. He takes you into a world and creates a condition so powerfully expressed on the page that it becomes a physical experience reading it.
I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was, in a sense, the first cyberspace story. There's a very interesting blurring of the interior with the exterior in that story.
You ain't pulling that crap on me again. And you can shove that part about how you lost the ability to hunt for food when you learned how to talk.
I mean, you don't realize what a boon it is to be able to create all these characters, to create all these worlds, and people actually think I'm worth something. I mean, here you are sitting here doing a show about me. Boy, have I got you suckers fooled.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture.
Ellison has been equally successful writing for television, but his relationship with Hollywood, where even the greatest writers are often rewritten, has been a contentious one.
He believes that the vision of the original creator has to be respected, that that's the fount of all creativity, and that to mess with it is sinful. And he has expressed that privately, publicly, in writing, on camera, lunging across lunch tables at executives, and in just about any way that you can think.
They're doing what they always do, using details to distract us from doing what must be done.
They do not understand the primacy of interest of the creator. The writer creates it, not the actor, not the director, not the people who read it. The writer is the one who creates it.
Harlan's policy is that you will treat what I write with respect. And if you give him the respect that his work requires, there is not a problem.
Well, he's a very understanding person. He understands the process. He just won't put up with it.
Harlan's friend Robin Williams has often witnessed the author's short fuse.
You know, his tolerance for stupidity is, but cellophane thin. And people will say something stupid. That's insane. That's stupid. You're a moron. You proved to me that Darwin was wrong. Harlan, no, come on, he's a priest. Let go of him.
This guy writes me and he says, I am 3 foot tall and we don't like being called midgets. We like being called little people.
Ellison's take-no-prisoners attitude has made him a popular television guest. In fact, in recent years, he has become as famous for his caustic commentaries as for his literary accomplishments.
And finally, I wrote him back a letter and I said, Dear Mr. Johnson, I am 5'5". I'm a little person. You're a midget.
Harlan's opinions have been voiced on such diverse programs as Sci-Fi Buzz, Politically Incorrect, and The Late Late Show with Tom Snyder.
Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Harlan Ellison.
I'm blacker than O.J. Simpson. He's the whitest dude I know, for God's sakes. I'm a big mouth. I'm a guy who runs his face, and that's just another place to do it. And here I am given a national, perhaps international platform from which to say a few reasonable things.
My philosophy of life has always been anything that is not nailed down is mine. And anything I can pry loose is not nailed down.
While Ellison's television commentaries have been known to cause a stir, his personal appearances are even more memorable. One of his favorite undertakings is to craft an original short story in public.
It is a great pleasure to do because it shows people that writing is a human job, that it's not some mystical trick that only a few people can do. But it's also a trick that you have to have talent to be able to do.
These stories are written in bookstore windows with no pre-planning.
I came up with about 100 clever ideas, all of which I discarded because I realized I wanted to leave the cleverness to the writer here. So this is a very,
to get this event started, X-Files creator Chris Carter has shown up and made a particularly challenging suggestion.
You're a terrible man. It says the 102-year-old pregnant corpse.
Within seconds, Ellison begins work on the story, 2 fingers hammering away on his manual typewriter at 120 words a minute.
A manual typewriter produces work at the speed and in the degree that I prefer. I don't like the PC. I don't like what the copy looks like. I like the fact that if I hit an S key, the S appears on the paper. It is my connection to my work.
They asked me to come and give him the suggestion, and I gave him the suggestion of a computer vampire, the bite that bites. And he said, screw you, I don't know anything about computers. And he wrote a story.
No matter what the subject, Ellison conducts his spontaneous symphony, and pages are pasted in the store window as they are completed.
It's like you're in Amsterdam going, what about these? Talk to a Jewish writer. Come, look at me. Play with my keys. Touch the ribbon.
Amazingly, a few hours later, the story is finished. While the crowd reads the results in the window, the author gracefully claims victory.
That devilish jackanapes, Chris Carter, thought he had me stumped. 102-year-old pregnant corpse indeed. Ha ha! I have you, Carter! I have you!
Harlan Ellison has dangerous visions and enters the world of Babylon 5. Next on Masters of Fantasy. Masters of Fantasy, Harlan Ellison, continues on the Sci-Fi Channel.
This is not a human being.
For nearly 50 years, Harlan Ellison has created thrilling television shows, fascinating works of fiction, and outrageous commentary.
I gotta tell you, I think vampires are dopey. I got no use for vampires. I mean, sucking blood is not my idea of a good time.
And Ellison's life has been every bit as captivating. Born in Cleveland and raised in Painesville, Ohio, he didn't wait long to begin what would be a lifetime of adventure and controversy.
I ran away from home first time when I was 13. I wasn't abused. I had a wonderful family, but I just knew that the world was mine if I could just go out there and find it. Toby Tyler or 10 Weeks with a Circus, which is a famous children's book, and I had read it, and this kid runs away and joins a circus. And so I did too, and I ran away, but I couldn't find a circus. But I did find a carnival.
Ellison was arrested and returned to his parents. But he had tasted the outside world. A few years later, he attended Ohio State University and was quickly frustrated by traditional academia.
So I had this college professor who told me I had no talent. You'll never be able to write. And if you continue to write, if you continue to bat your wings against the window like a moth, he said, you will be frustrated. And I punched him. I hit him very hard.
This was not the school's accepted form of student-teacher feedback, and Ellison was told he was no longer welcome at Ohio State.
I sat around for about 3-4 months, and then I went to New York, got myself some jobs, and I started writing, and I sold 2 stories the first year and 110 stories the second year. And I've been doing it ever since.
Ellison's brash and innovative fiction and his equally brash personal style instantly attracted young readers like future cyberpunk icon William Gibson.
I noticed that there was this guy who wrote science fiction, but he would also turn up like in Playboy and Esquire, and he would like actually be wearing a cool jacket. He was this crossover guy, and he was like a science fiction writer, but he was really hip too.
Fantasists are special kinds of dreamers. Their minds come from someplace else, their thoughts are someplace else. They deal with this oneness with the cosmos.
Ellison's star rose quickly, and in 1967, his landmark anthology, Dangerous Visions, exploded on the literary scene.
You didn't see any stories about black people. You didn't see any stories by women. You didn't see stories about labor relations or sex or religion. So I said, I really would like to edit a book that is filled with stories that are so offbeat, so dangerous, that no magazine would touch them.
When Dangerous Visions came out, Harlan had this wonderful kind of badass avant-garde attitude going with it. And this was going to be like the gloves off, full frontal, as crazy as you want to be fiction.
We need a new literature that speaks to this kind of feeling and to these needs. A fiction of the people.
Ellison soon became one of the most requested speakers on the college lecture circuit. In fact, he continues playing to halls packed with students today. He may be a few years older, but he's just as captivating.
Folks, I make no bones about it. I'm a card-carrying atheist. That's what I am. I'm not some mealy-mouthed agnostic who says, well, maybe.
Harlan not only speaks at colleges, but teaches as well. In fact, he was the first to recognize the talent of author and MacArthur Genius Grant recipient Octavia Butler.
He was what I think of as my first good critic. He was the sort of person who would hold up a piece of writing, mine, for instance, and say, I can't read this, it's boring. And it was.
Another young writer inspired by Ellison was J. Michael Straczynski, creator of television's Babylon 5.
I had aspirations of being a writer, but to my mind, writers didn't come out of the street. I thought they were all ivory tower guys who came out of the academic life. Then I encountered Memos from Purgatory.
I joined a gang in Red Hook, Brooklyn, very, very, very dangerous section. And I ran with the gang for 6 weeks so I could get background for the novel. And out of it came my novel, Web of the City, and a nonfiction study, Memos from Purgatory.
When young Straczynski experienced his first writing dry spell, he decided to give Harlan a call to see if the author could help.
So at 21 years old, I called the phone number, and it rang, and a voice said, yeah? And I said, is this Harlan Ellison? Yeah, what do you want? Well, my name is Joe, and I'm a writer, and my stuff isn't selling right now, and I thought maybe you could help me. And he said, all right, I'll tell you what the deal is. I can tell you why your stuff isn't selling. It's crap. Stop writing crap. If it weren't crap, it would sell.
Many years later, when Straczynski launched his series, Babylon 5, he once again turned to Ellison for guidance.
I went for Harlan after we got Babylon 5 going because I wanted to have one of the foremost minds of the 20th century at my disposal, which cannot be a bad thing by anyone's measure.
One of the things I said was, you put that many people living together in a space station, they're going to start beating the crap out of each other. And they're going to be worried about the human things that people are worried about.
Who? What? Answer me!
Next on Masters of Fantasy, Harlan Ellison's journeys to the outer limits and the final frontier. Masters of Fantasy, Harlan Ellison continues on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Tell them to set course for Sigma 957.
The tower.
Long before Harlan Ellison worked on Babylon 5, he was asked to write a script for the most famous science fiction series in television history.
A time portal, Captain. A gateway to other times and dimensions, if I'm correct.
Ellison's 1967 Star Trek episode, The City on the Edge of Forever, has been singled out by TV Guide as the finest show of the landmark series and one of the 100 greatest programs in television history.
Jim, Edith Keeler must die.
I just knew that it was going to be an exciting episode to shoot because it had a dynamic about it. It had a thematic thrust to it that was very refreshing. It was not a tired carbon copy of other stuff that we had done.
I wrote a love story, a tragic love story in which a man has to let the woman he has come to love die, or the rest of the world will go down the tubes.
I could have saved her. Do you know what you just did? He knows, Doctor. He knows.
His work is unique. It's recognizably unique. You say, well, this is not anybody's writing. This is not formulaic writing. This is very special. It is energetic, it's passionate, it's unique.
Ellison's award-winning Outer Limits episode, Demon with a Glass Hand, was one of the highlights of the series.
You are a robot, Trent. You are the guardian of the human race.
Demon with a Glass Hand was one of the high points of my television career. I said, I love Robert Culp. He's just the guy to play Trent.
I want to know who's carrying the other 3 parts of my brain.
When I first met Harlan, which was on the set in the middle of the night of Demon with a Glass Hand, I honestly didn't know who he was. And he walked up and said very loudly that he had written this episode specifically for me. And what do you think, hotshot? And that kind of stuff. And I said, I think it's very nice, man. It's a great script. I had no idea at the time that it was as great as it was.
To this day, I can't see it without welling up with tears. And I look at that and I think, God, I really knew what the hell I was doing when I wrote that.
How to do it?
What?
Talk to him.
I don't know. We never thought about it. Just talking.
Amazingly, despite Harlan's prodigious output, only one of his stories has become a feature film. A Boy and His Dog, based on Ellison's novella, was directed by L.Q. Jones and won a Hugo Award in 1976.
You know you're starting to sound like a goddamn poodle.
You're starting to sound like a jackass.
Well, the film then won the Hugo the following year. It was won it for the best dramatic presentation. And the interesting thing was they gave the damn award to L.Q. Gave him the damn statue. I said, hey, yo, what about me? What am I, chopped liver? So they gave me the base, and they counted it as a 1/2 Hugo. I'm the only person ever to win a half Hugo.
Harlan Ellison has now collected 8.5 Hugos and 3 Nebula Awards, but his accolades have not been limited to his science fiction work. He has captured 4 Writers Guild Awards for his teleplays, 2 Edgar Awards for his mystery writing, and even a Silver Pen for journalism. So it's not surprising that he dislikes being labeled a science fiction writer.
When you categorize someone, you identify them by a label, not by what they do, but by the label, and you exclude everything else, and they are trapped there for the rest of their natural lives.
Ellison tries to avoid these traps by creating a diverse body of work. To maintain his formidable output, he draws inspiration from his 250,000-volume personal library and his collection of more than 400,000 comic books.
Comic books have always been, for me, an absolutely legitimate area of reading matter. Right next to my bed is a stack of books I'm working on, and this week's DC and Marvels. And I make no distinction between them, and I think anyone who does is a damn fool.
Not surprisingly, Harlan's emotion over such seemingly innocent subjects has caused him to step on a few toes. But his passion has endeared him to many of his peers. In fact, when asked about Ellison, Arthur C. Clarke sent an email from his home in Sri Lanka stating, "Harlan has the biggest heart-to-body ratio of anyone I know." Recently, Harlan Ellison was able to combine his love of visual imagery with his talent for imaginative prose. His book, Minefields, contains 33 short stories, each inspired by a different painting by Polish artist Jacek Jerka.
Minefields is my favorite book. Well, it took me about 7 months to write them, but and each one is around a painting, and each story is separate in itself, and one of them was in Best of the Year.
While the energetic Ellison would appear to have many more good years in front of him, a recent coronary episode has caused him to slow down a little and take stock of his life and his future.
And out of that miscegenation came I don't want my wife to have to wander through these rooms looking for me and looking for my laugh. I don't want that. So I'm watching myself. Has it changed my life? Yeah. Every moment with Susan is a precious moment to me. Every story that I'm able to get out before I go down the hole is very precious to me.
No matter how many more stories Ellison writes, he has left an indelible impression on the literary landscape that has changed the world of imaginative fiction forever.
There's no holding back. There's no editing for safety or for self-protection. It's terribly revealing work. Passionate, great personal, passionate work.
To me, Harlan he's a visionary, but he's also a pop artist in some very capital P way. He's a very American phenomena, you know, and it kind of in the way that Mark Twain was.
And I think he'll probably be remembered almost as much for his performances as for his writing. I don't know if that's what he intended, but I think he will be, because I think people who've never read him, you know, have heard him speak and have some sort of an opinion about him.
Prophets have a habit of not being respected in their own lifetime. They tend to get stoned to death and derided, but in the aftermath, they say, oh, but they were right, weren't they? And Harlan is right more often than he is wrong.
I suppose I would like to be remembered as a guy who was fair but took no crap. I would like 50 or 100 years after I'm gone, somebody to still be reading my stuff. I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Produced in association with the Sci-Fi Channel.